Hello, my name is Amber Kaplan, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my hospital remodel summer internship during 2022. So I was a remote project management intern with J.E. Dunn Construction in their healthcare sector. I was based out of Nashville, but lived and worked in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So this meant I was reporting back to 2 project engineers and a project manager in Nashville, but I worked day to day with 2 superintendents on site in Wisconsin. So a little bit about the project. It took place at Sacred Heart Hospital in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, like I said. This is a 10-story hospital building, and this project also included an off-campus office building. Both were owned by Hospital Sisters Health System. So the actual owner of the project is Encompass Health. So this is a company that builds rehabilitation centers for patients after surgery before they can go home. So they buy parts of hospitals or build ground-up centers all over the Midwest and South region, and they are a repeat customer for J.E. Dunn, so that's how this particular project came to be. So some things about the project scope itself. This was a joint venture, like I said, between Encompass Health and HSHS. It was a 2.5-floor hospital remodel, which meant 36 beds that also included gym and activity spaces and kitchens for the patients to use. There was also, like I said, the separate admin office building, which also got a part of it remodeled. This was about a 5-minute drive from the hospital. This included 5 offices, 2 conference rooms, and a break room. The project was originally supposed to finish out September 2022, but last time I had checked, it got pushed back until this month, February 2023. So my responsibilities varied day to day, but these are just some of the ones I wanted to highlight. So because I was a remote intern for the project engineers who were not on site in Nashville, I essentially took over being their eyes for anything on site. So this meant talking to subcontractors, taking pictures, finding information or conditions that they would be able to do if they were on site, but because they weren't, this was now my responsibility. I also wrote a lot of RFIs. For how small the project was, I was still writing 3 to 5 RFIs a week. This was something I completely took over by the end of the summer. I also made a punch list for the finished admin area. So the office area had been finished by the last few weeks I was there for the summer, so I was in charge of the punch list. So first I made a punch list that got sent to the subcontractors to tell them this is what needs to be touched up, this is what you need to do, anything like that. I then went back again with the punch list, which was on BIM 360, and I made a final report to be sent to the architect and the owner saying this space was finished and ready to be used. I also made weekly reports, so this was my Friday job when I was there on site. So this was taking pictures and updating the schedule. Anything that had progressed, I would note in the report. Anything that was going to happen in the next few weeks, I would note in the report, and this was also sent to the owners and the architect every week. I would say, however, my biggest responsibility was keeping the subcontractors up to date. So like I said, there were a lot of RFIs and the floor plans were constantly changing, so I was there to make sure that everyone knew what these changes were. I was printing out floor plans, new floor plans, I was updating the old ones, marking them that this is an RFI that changed this area or anything like that. I also handle a lot of the submittals, so things like sinks, for example. I made a 50-page document saying which sinks went where on the entire floor plan, made a whole report of it, and sent it to the supplier and the plumber so that they would know exactly what to do where. I did face some challenges over the summer, and these are just 2 of them that I want to talk about. So first, I knew nothing going into it, candidly. I had only done the OSHA 10 certification, and I took the seminar that, taught me a little bit about how to read floor plans, but that was really it. And so this proved to be a challenge just at the beginning of the summer, but I was able to overcome it very quickly due to the immersive nature of these internships. But my biggest challenge, I would say, was having to earn the respect of the superintendents, the project engineers, and the managers, going in, telling people that I was an intern with 0 construction knowledge and 0 construction experience. I knew I was going to have to earn the respect and show them that I was capable to do said tasks, but also being the only woman on the team and the only woman even on site was an interesting experience, and I think set me a few more steps back, but was definitely something I was able to conquer. So like I said, I had way more triumphs than challenges over the summer. So the first one was I learned about construction. So this meant I learned the order of who does what in a build, and I also learned a lot of terminology. By the end of the summer, I had a notebook filled with essentially a dictionary filled with construction terms and their definitions that I had learned throughout the summer, so I would be able to look back and know what I learned. I also was writing RFIs by the middle of the summer with no revisions, so that meant I wasn't even sending them to my PEs for them to check. I was just sending them straight off to the architects and the owners, whoever needed to see them and answer them. I also was able to get OSHA 30 certified over the summer, and I navigated BIM 360, CMIC, and Bluebeam by the end of the summer with great ease. But I would say, going along with my biggest challenge, my biggest triumph was earning the respect of the superintendents, project engineers, and managers. I knew by the end of the summer I had earned this respect because they were giving me more lucrative tasks to do. So I learned a lot of lessons, and these are just some that are more relevant just to construction. So this, like I said, was a healthcare project, so that comes with its own set of rules, but on top of that, there were still active patients in the other floors of the hospital. So this meant there were a lot of rules that we had to follow and make sure everyone else was following. So there were things like which doors and elevators to use. The JSAs were taken even more seriously. There were ventilation issues to make sure that there were no dust where the active patients were or anything like that. And the biggest one happened to be that all the subcontractors wanted to get to work before 8 a.m., but we had a strict no hammering rule before 8 a.m. so the patients could get their good night's sleep. Another thing I learned was, like I said, how to use Bluebeam, CMIC, BIM 360. All of these programs I had no experience in going in, but I like to say I can use them with ease now. The other lessons I learned, but more relevant to professional and just life lessons. First things first, I learned how to make emails precise and efficient. So being a remote intern, I did have to email a lot, and so I learned exactly what to say to get the answer I needed in the first response, so there wasn't a whole chain of emails. I also learned when it was appropriate to use text, meaning if I needed a short, quick answer, I knew when to use text to get those answers. I also learned a bit about the professional meeting etiquette. Because this was a remote project, there were a lot of meetings virtually, so I was able to sit in on all of them. And so this was a great experience. I learned etiquette of a professional meeting, but also who talks when, who knows what answers, and anything like that, which was very useful. And my biggest lessons I learned is simply that everyone is willing to answer your questions. Even the most important person in the meeting is willing to answer your questions. There were site visits that had the project engineers, project managers, and group managers. And the group manager, who is the highest ranking person there, was the first person to ever ask if I needed questions answered or if I had anything. And we even walked the site, just him and I, to make sure I was understanding everything and it was going great. Going along those lines, everyone started as an intern or as a first-year worker. They all started where I was, and so they were human and very kind, and that was something I wish I recognized going into it because I wouldn't have been as scared or as nervous. Overall, this experience was great, and I would do it again.